so glad to be back, and I hope you guys have been doing well. I had a little bit of an accident about a month ago where I high-sided my supermoto at the kart track, partially tore this ligament in my shoulder. The bad news is that I can't ride right now. The good news is that it doesn't require surgery. Thank you to everyone that reached out and asked me how I was doing. Really appreciate that. So today, this is actually footage from a COTA track that I did about a month or two ago, and what I wanted to do was actually share some stuff that I learned from that track day. The reason is because I met this gentleman named Mike, and turns out that Mike was very kind of unassuming, but it turns out he was like the #1 plate in the Utah, Colorado region for racing, and so he's really good. The guy's doing like 219s on his Suzuki GXR 1000 out at COTA, and so I asked him for some pointers, and so he very graciously showed me around. I wanted to share what I learned, and also it's a way for me to kind of keep notes for myself as well, and hopefully they'll help you in case you're headed to COTA for a track day yourself. Alright, so let's give this format a shot. So we're going to start with turn 1, which is, going up the hill, and you have this very tricky corner here that I've struggled with a lot. Do you see how I start to kind of turn in early? I don't have like a pointer here, but you can see where the nose of my bike is pointing, right? So I'm turning a little bit too early, which means I'm pointing off track, whereas Mike Apex is quite late, and that lets him be on the outside of the next corner, right? So he's setting himself up for turn 2 right there, where he's able to get on the gas and kind of roll through and carry a ton of speed, right? And that's a really important section. You see me, I'm kind of far to the right side of the track, or even mid-track, and I'm not able to get on the gas quite as well. And see, I'm kind of tight in the corner already. And then here, this corner here, you don't want to be too far to the right. And then you're late apexing this, late apexing that, and then you want to hit the apex one, like a little bit early here, and then let the bike drift out wide. See how Mike is coming all the way out, and then from here he can late apex the second half of the corner really well, which lets him again be on the right side of the track to set up for the left-hand corner. Whereas you see where I'm at, I'm about a third off of the paint, which means that I then have to slow down, correct, and then bring it back around just to make this corner again. And just, these little things add up quite a lot. This corner here is a really fun corner. You want to really late apex, and then also hit this white paint over here on the right hand side, and that will give you the room to flick over and kind of accelerate into this really fast part as you aim down the track and build up speed. I'm going to skip further ahead a little bit into kind of the back half of the track, which I feel like is a really tricky corner for a lot of folks. And here he goes, blasting by on his Suzuki 1000. And this was, keep in mind, this was kind of a little bit earlier in the day for us. It was our first session riding together, so I think he was just trying to figure out what I was doing. But I just wanted to kind of show the lines that he's doing, because it's so clean and so good. And so one of the questions I have with him, is like, how the hell do you figure out the braking zone for the backstreet? Because it's just so massive. So, I honestly ended up starting to use reference points on the right side of the track. You've got the paint, you've got the cards. You really have to kind of pick something and incrementally work your way up to the corner. And here again, you want to late apex so that you're not pointing off the track, off to the white area. You want to be able to get on the gas and then accelerate into the next corner here. Alright. Leading up to this corner, this is one of the trickiest corners that I find myself having a challenge with. And you see the way Mike approaches it. You have a little bit of a run here. Let me show you guys. So right here, you have a really straight shot. So you should be accelerating, gassing into this section, and then you're going to let yourself kind of drift out, and it's a decreasing radius, so you really want to go late. Do you see how kind of late on the back half of that corner Mike is apexing it, and I'm again pointing a little bit too early, so therefore off track instead of down track. So kind of, that's what we want to do there too. And then we've got this section here, which I think, I kind of fairly understand, but you really do want to let the use momentum, let the bike drift out and apex late again. And then the rest of it, I think, is a little bit less complicated. And then, of course, you have And of course you have the final corner, and you really want to apex late again, right? So you want to apex late, and that's going to give you the best run down these straights. And I'll pause it. I'll pause it right there. So I think for me, you know, the kind of the big lesson, and honestly, like a lot of these lessons are kind of things that you probably have heard before, but at the same time, it's like good to reinforce the lessons that you've learned, right? And so, you know, obviously, COTA has these famously large straights, and you really have to think about how are you setting yourself up for the best possible run onto those straights, right? And so they're all kind of late apex corners. And so what we want to do is make sure that we're not turning in too early, nor are we turning too late. And so the tips that, you know, that Mike gave me that I thought was like really common sense, but it was also nice to just hear it out loud, and maybe you can use it to kind of remind yourself, is you can kind of gauge whether or not you're too early or too late on an apex just based on kind of two things. So one, if you go through a corner and you have to wait to get back on the gas, there's a high chance that you turned a little bit too early because you're pointing off track, right? Then you've got to correct and then steer, and then you're pointing down track, and then you can get on gas, right? So that's one. Two is if you finish the corner and there's a ton of space and ton of track on the outside of the corner and you're already pointed down track, that means you went way too late, right? And so finding the optimal kind of line through that corner is a balance of those two things, right? You don't want to go too early where you're pointing off track, and you definitely don't want to go too late where you're pointing down track and you have a ton of room on the outside, which means you were really, really, really late on the corner, or just really, really late on the gas. And so I know that sounds really simple, but if you just take that and kind of apply it to a few corners, especially the ones that lead up to straights, it becomes really, really useful. At the end of the day, I did like a 231 flat, which I was okay with. You know, I really, really want to go sub 230, especially because the bike doesn't really have that much power on the straights. I'm still topping out at around 150 miles an hour. I do think that I could benefit from figuring out a better gearing selection. So I hope that was helpful for you guys in case you're headed to a COTA track day. I know this is not blazingly fast, but I do think that if we just work on these things that we've learned and kind of just apply them a little bit more each time, then, you know, you'll really start to pick up the pace. So I really think that if I had like a second day back to back, I would have like been in the sub 230s, which I'd be pretty pleased with. I was kind of joking with Mike, you know, like given the bike and given the power or the lack of power on the straights that the RC8C doesn't have, kind of what's the target lap time for me on the bike? And he said like pretty healthy estimate is a 225 there. So that's the new goal. So, you know, I'm going to try to rest at the shoulder, let it get better, and then the goal is to get back on track next week, see how it feels, and then if everything goes well, then I'm going to sign up for the September 2nd and 3rd track day. So if you're there at COTA, come by, say hi, and let's try to break some personal bests and get even faster. So yeah, that's it today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If this was useful, let me know in the comments below. If it wasn't useful, let me know as well, or just drop a hi. It's always great to hear from you guys, and I hope to see you guys on the next video. Thanks.